Welcome to the 2019 DC Law School Fair 101 webinar. You've received this webinar because you registered to attend the 2019 DC Law School Fair. This fair is taking place at the George Washington University on October 3rd from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Charles E. Smith Center, which is located on 600 22nd Street Northwest. This webinar is intended to be a resource for attendees and will cover the tools you need to successfully navigate the law school fair, walking away having learned more about law schools, the law school application process, financing your legal education, and the array of opportunities available to a law school graduate. This webinar will cover several topics, each providing guidance on a different aspect of the fair. First, I will address the benefits of attending the fair. You've registered, but why exactly should you attend? Second, I will address how you should approach the fair. How should you conduct yourself and what interactions should you anticipate having? Third, I will explain how you should prepare for the fair, including what research you should conduct and what you should bring with you. Next, I will address two very important questions. How do you navigate the exhibit floor, and what types of questions should you be prepared to ask admissions representatives? I will then provide a list of law school fairs' do's and don'ts, and ultimately end with a brief summary. So you've been invited, you registered, and now you're here. But what are some of the benefits of attending a law school fair? Beyond the obvious access to over 120 U.S. ABA accredited law schools, this fair humanizes the law school application process, which can often appear complex and alienating. This fair presents an opportunity for personal interaction between both attendees and law school representatives, which can reduce anonymity in the process and build relationships. It also helps to eliminate anxiety by allowing students to have their questions and concerns answered directly and immediately. Moreover, the panels provide an opportunity to hear from legal practitioners, and the vendors represent your ability to gain a broader perspective on those services that are likely to be critical to your success in the application process. So, how should you approach the fair? Law school is a professional school, and the law school fair should be treated as a professional event as well. This means that the dress code is business casual, with the understanding that some attendees may be dressed more formally or less formally depending on their activities earlier in the day. It also means that you should anticipate having business-like conversations with everyone you meet, both your fellow attendees and law school representatives. When meeting an admissions representative for the first time, you should offer to shake their hand while stating your first and last name. It would also be helpful to provide a brief introduction, including what undergraduate institution you attended, what year did you graduate or anticipate graduating, and if you're not from the DC area, what area do you hail from? Remember, address admissions representative by their last name unless they tell you otherwise. Remember to smile and to make eye contact. Also, thank representatives when it is appropriate. This means use terms such as thank you were very helpful, or it was nice to meet you. Plan on sending an email to your admissions representatives with whom you've spoken within about 24 hours of the event. In this email, you may want to express your enjoyment with meeting them, letting them know what you found helpful, and asking for clarification or posing additional questions if you have them. So how do I prepare for the fair? As with anything you do that impacts your career path, you want to concentrate on doing the research. If you intend to start your 1L year in fall 2020, your first job is to create a spreadsheet of school choices. You want to include schools that you have a high likelihood of being admitted to. For example, schools for which you clearly exceed the median test score and GPA. You then want to include target schools. Those are the schools for which you may be highly competitive, but admission is extremely uncertain. Finally, you include one or two schools for which you have a strong desire to attend, but for which your test scores and GPA may not be highly competitive. In this spreadsheet, it is wise to include the numerical indices for each school, but also think beyond the numbers and note other points of interest, such as location or tailored programming. For example, some schools have programs that are very robust in international law. Others have programs that are robust in criminal law. Also include important details like application deadlines. For example, some schools have early decision deadlines or scholarship deadlines. You also want to include extremely important information like tuition and fees, or application requirements like the number of pages on a personal statement or the number of required recommendations. Since applications are open, if you're subscribed to LSAC's Credential Assembly Service, also review the applications of schools that you may be interested in, noting any questions you may have, and anticipate asking. But what if you're a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or even a working professional who is not entirely committed to applying to law school? Even if you're not applying this cycle, exploration is key. If you aren't sure about your interest in pursuing a law degree or a legal career, visit LSAC's Discover Law homepage, as well as the American Bar Association's Pre-Law homepage. The internet is a data mining tool. Use it to research schools based on region or areas of interest. Compile a list of schools that match your interest and a list of questions you may want to ask representatives from those schools. If you're early in the process, a freshman, sophomore, or junior, identify schools with early entry programs, such as Harvard's Junior Deferral Program. So you've done your research. Now, what are you bringing with you? There are a few things that should be on your checklist to bring to the fair. Bring business cards or resumes if you have them. However, don't anticipate that you're going to hand your resume to a representative and that they'll be able to read it on the spot. Instead, use that opportunity to highlight aspects of your resume so that the admissions representative could tailor their conversation to your interest. Remember, a business card or a resume only works as a point of contact if you follow up with the representative after the fair. Do bring a notepad to take notes, or a notepad on which you've already written down questions you anticipate asking. And of course, bring that school list that you created in preparation for the fair. When you arrive at the fair, you will start at the registration desk where you'll collect your name tag if you pre-registered. If you didn't pre-register, on-site registration is also available. You will also collect a bag with important information, such as a map of the arena floor, a description of the panels and workshops and the time that they'll be held, and important information from LSAC and Access Lex. So how do I work the room? Generally, you're attending the fair to visit as many schools of interest as possible. So start by reviewing your map. Note the location of schools of interest using the pen provided in your complimentary Access Lex bag. Create a loose order of the schools you're interested in visiting. Why loose? Because lines may be longer than you anticipate, and you need to be flexible enough in order to make this an effective endeavor. You want to start with schools for which you are highly competitive. Ordinarily, these schools are referred to as safety schools. Why? Because you're more likely to be comfortable with these schools, and it's easier to use them as a testing board. These schools present an opportunity to inquire about early decision and scholarship opportunities. Continue on to schools where you are competitive. These are often called target schools. These are schools where your numbers revolve around their median LSAT and median GPA score. But again, be flexible. Don't stand on one line for the entirety of the fair. Instead, use these schools as a great opportunity to talk about early decision or wait list, or maybe the possibility of transferring. You want to know how your application could stand out against a crowd of applicants who may look similar to you. Also visit at least one REACH school. Remember that a REACH or a DREAM school is a school for which your numbers revolve maybe below the 50th percentile, but you're really excited about that school, whether it's because of prestige or ranking, or because you'd be a legacy student as your parents or family member attended that school, because you've known or worked with their alum. For whatever reason, this is a school you're deeply interested in, but for which you are not highly competitive. This fair represents a great opportunity to ask admissions representatives how you could rise above your numbers. It is a good time to ask for an example of students who were selected despite their numbers, and what kinds of characteristics they had which allowed the school to extend a coveted offer of admission. But also consider a school that didn't make your list. Again, there will be over 100 school representatives at this event. It is important not to isolate your interests. Because most admission committees are comprised of multiple readers, the more interaction you have with different representatives, the greater the perspective you'll gain. Another important point about being flexible: visit a workshop or a panel discussion rather than remain on the arena floor for the entire event. Workshops present an opportunity to learn candid information from others in the legal field outside of admissions. The first workshop at 5 p.m. in the Champions Club, one floor above the arena, is not questioning your interest in law school, but rather it addresses concerns and questions about what you can expect from the legal market as a graduate of law school. Hear from recent and seasoned attorneys about their choice to attend law school, and also hear from the executive director of the National Association of Law Placement, the absolute expert on the careers law school graduates seek out and are employed in after law school. The panel will also address concerns about being successful in the legal field for students who do not attend a top 15 law school. The 6 p.m. workshop is another important workshop of interest because one of the primary questions for most law school applicants is, will I be able to afford law school? Affordability weighs heavily on the minds of many students who look for scholarships, whether merit or need-based, or who seek out programs with generous loan repayment opportunities. In this workshop, you will hear from an expert in the field of accessibility to legal education, Access Lex, who will discuss ways to make law school affordable. One of the most popular panels held after the fair is completed is the mock admissions panel. Also in the Champions Club, it allows you to have a peek into the application process. You can see how a candidate's application may be reviewed by observing a mock application review, and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions about the admissions process from seasoned representatives. Don't forget, there will also be vendors attending the event. One of the most important vendors is the Law School Admissions Council. You can't apply to an ABA accredited law school in the United States without the Law School Admissions Council. Here's your opportunity to seek out advice and ask any questions you have about the application process, the digital LSAT, the digital write-in sample, the credential assembly service, the mechanism by which all of your academic data is gathered and distributed to the schools to which you're applying, or even asking about the possibility of LSAC fee waivers for each of these services. You also have the opportunity to see various test companies and ask about discounts and course offerings. Now that we've talked about who to visit, the most pressing question on your mind is likely, what should I ask admissions representatives? You are likely attending this fair because you want to learn more about the application process. One area of discovery is inquiring about trends in recent applicant pools over past years. Questions like, so far, do you see any new trends in the GPA LSAT of other applicants? Are more students taking gap years? Are more students providing diversity statement or addenda? Are more students taking the test multiple times? Are students applying with GRE scores? Did you take any students off of your waitlist last year? When did most students apply last year? And did early decision students have better admit rates? These are questions that allow you to gain insight into how the application and admissions process might have changed at that particular institution from one year to the next. You may also want to get deeper insight into the application process itself. Who reads the application at your school? Is it the dean? Are they directors, line staff, faculty, students? What is the most important factor after test scores and GPA? When do you typically send out the first acceptance or rejection letters? If I take the LSAT multiple times, how do you treat my score? Would you want to see my study abroad grades? What are the types of addenda that you find most useful? And how do you decide to take a student off of a wait list? Is there an order of priority? Is there a preference for certain characteristics? Another area of inquiry that has grown in popularity over time is transferring. How does a student reapply to your institution? When can a student apply to transfer into your program? Do you consider UGPA and LSAT scores for transfer students, or are you looking at grades alone? What type of grades in law school do you need in order to be a strong transfer candidate? A frequently overlooked consideration for law school is the environment. Ask representatives questions that will determine whether or not you would be a good fit for that particular institution's environment and whether or not that institution's environment would be a good fit for you. How would you describe the student environment at your school? Is it competitive? Is it relaxed? Is it highly engaged? Is it independent? Are all 1L classes in sections? How many students are there in a section? How many small section classes do students have in their 1L year? Does your law school have programs to support students who are blank? Fill in the blank with your choice. Students who are older, students who are first generation, students who fit a particular ethnic or socioeconomic group. What type of study supports are available to all students? Do most students live on or near campus? Does the school provide money for professor-student engagement or student-student engagement? Remember that law school is not just about the networking, it's about school. You should take into consideration the curriculum and programs offered by the institution. Can I take classes pass fail? Have there been any recent improvements to the 1L curriculum? How early can I take elective classes? I see you have blank clinics. Are students guaranteed at least a clinic? Can I take courses or a semester at another institution or a semester abroad? Does your school offer research opportunities with professors? Remember I said that financial considerations weigh very heavily on students' decisions to accept an offer? Well, you definitely should take the opportunity to ask about financial considerations. If I apply early, How does it affect my financial aid award? Or what options do you have for aid besides private or federal loans? Does your loan repayment or forgiveness program include government jobs, nonprofits, or indirect legal work? How long does it take to receive a financial aid package after receiving an admissions offer? Can I appeal a financial award package? Are you willing to match offers from other schools? In fact, questions about financial aid are pretty extensive. Last, but certainly not least, are questions concerning employment during and after law school. It is reasonable to assume that if you're interested in attending law school, you're likely interested in pursuing a legal career after law school. You definitely want to get some insight into a school's ability to provide you with the tools necessary for successful employment. What programs do you have for students seeking paid 1L summer jobs? Can all students participate in the on-campus interview process, or is there a grade restriction? What options do you have to support employment searches outside of the on-campus interview process? This is a very important question for students who want to travel off the beaten path. What percentage of last year's graduating class had a job offer before taking the bar? They may not be able to answer the percentage exactly, but perhaps give you a better sense of how many students were well situated before their bar exam results were final. What programs are in place for students seeking public interest employment? And does the school have a formal clerkship process in place? Remember, these questions are just to get you thinking about the questions that are tailored to your interests. You're not bound by them, and neither should you ask all of them. Well, this would not be a how-to webinar without the do's and the don'ts. Don't forget that you're in a professional environment. Dress and speak appropriately. Don't arrive unprepared. Do your research on schools. Don't feel pressured to ask questions if you have none. Instead, act with purpose. Plan for 2 to 3 specific questions. However, it's perfectly okay to listen to the questions that are being asked before you. It especially helps with avoiding repetition. Don't ask about anything that could easily be found on their website with a little bit of research. Instead, ask about those changes or trends that have not yet been noted. Don't hand out personal statements for them to read. Ask instead what they'd like to see in a personal statement. Don't ask a school about its U.S. News and World Report rank. Ask if their applicants seem stronger this year than they did in previous years. Don't ask very specific questions that should be saved for a phone call. Be considerate and limit your questions, especially if lines are long. Don't spend your entire time on 1 or 2 long lines. Be strategic. Visit as many target schools as possible. Don't ask whether you'll be admitted based on your numbers. Do ask if there's any way to increase your competitiveness. Don't limit your visits to only those schools of high rank or prestige. Think broadly about what a school can offer in terms of environment, financial aid, and programming targeted to your interests. Don't chew gum or eat while talking to representatives, but use a mint if the occasion calls for one. Do not aggressively demand fee waivers. Ask politely if fee waivers are available. Don't feel overwhelmed carrying a ton of material in hand. Use the complimentary bags at the fair to collect brochures, business cards, and marketing materials. Don't spend the entire night only visiting schools. Do attend panels and workshops. In summary, view the DC Law School Fair as an investment in your education, your career, and ultimately your future. Have fun, learn, meet not only great admissions representatives, but also your future colleagues. And finally, don't forget to complete our survey at the end of your visit. Providing useful feedback will be helpful in tailoring our future events to meet your needs.